Welcome to the Inside Track on Real Estate with the Dekker Team. I'm Yetta Dekker.
And I'm Ken Dekker.
And we're excited that you joined us today. And together we form part of the Dekker Team. There's lots of other amazing team members that you have met, that you ought to meet if you haven't already. And so we won't talk a lot about them today. However, we will bring them into the conversation because today's conversation is about the advantages, disadvantages, the things to consider maybe is the better way to state it around selling your own home.
Yeah, because some people do it.
Right, and it works for some people. And so why
and some people change their own oil.
Right.
And install their own kitchens.
Right.
But I haven't seen too many people doing their own dentistry work.
No, I haven't either. You're hilarious. Okay, so why would we, and this is a question some of our clients ask, and even the folks that are considering working with us, or even in a social setting, will say, why would you give counsel and input to somebody if they're going to sell their own home? Why is it, Ken?
Well, because we're nice people.
And because we don't want to see anybody make a bad decision. Doesn't matter what you've decided to do or how you've decided to do it. We want to ensure that the best information is available. Right? Because selling a home, like buying a home, is one of the single largest, I'll call it an investment, however, money acquisition or disposition of money or that the average person is going to do, right? So we want to make sure that that's done well. It's certainly an area where lots of legal issues could come up and be a problem for somebody, right?
Yeah. Could be. I've seen it happen.
I have too. And so the team approach, and why I mentioned the team right at the beginning of the show, is even as an individual realtor, we don't believe that a single person can protect you as well as a team of professionals can, because we each have our area of expertise and specialty that allows us to ensure that every aspect of the real estate transaction, whether you are buying or you are selling, is taken care of in the best possible manner.
So let's talk about some things to consider if you're thinking about selling your home by yourself. Right.
One thing to consider is the percentage of the market that you have access to of the buyers. And the types of buyers that are more traditionally going to be available to somebody selling their own home.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, because it's an interesting piece that I didn't always understand, even myself as a realtor.
So about 80% of buyers,
80 to 85, eh?
Yeah, maybe even a little more, are signed up with real estate agents.
Right, meaning they have an agent that is representing their best interest. So signed up with sounds very casual and kind of funny almost, and yet what we're saying there is they have chosen a realtor to represent and protect their interest. And most of those buyers that have done that are buyers that are ready to buy now. Maybe they've already sold their home. Maybe they're in the process of selling their home, or maybe they're coming in from another area and therefore they have some urgency.
So that's the first type of buyer.
Right. Somebody that's ready to buy.
Because there's 4 types of buyers, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's another type?
Well, another type is the investor.
Right.
An investor buyer, especially if they're working on their own, they're not working with a real estate agent, a lot of times they're looking to buy a house that's significantly below market so they can make money on the front end.
Right.
And
which allows them to make money on the back end.
Yeah, quite often they're the ones that maybe are flipping a house or a contractor, renovator, or maybe one that wants to tear down a house and build on the lot. They're quite often looking for sale by owners who maybe don't know the true value of their lot and their location. They've lived there a long time or whatever, and to take advantage.
Right. So they're taking advantage of a good value. So that is certainly a buyer that is often looking on their own. Not always, and yet often that's the case.
So that's one type.
Yep. So that's 2. So we've got the motivated, ready to go buyer. And one thing I'd say about that person, because they've already made a decision that they are going to buy, they will generally hire a realtor to help them because the cost of that service to the buyer is free. And they get a lot of protection and representation. They can get guidance, they can get background information, get all kinds of information that they otherwise would not be provided. And so those buyers generally have a realtor.
Yeah. So the next type is the type of buyer that is transferred, coming into town. They've got usually 5 days to buy a house, and they've hired a realtor to support them in that purchase because they know the value of it, and they know that they have to be able to access all the houses relatively quickly, get advice on areas, neighborhoods, and they really need somebody on their team to help them find a house quickly. So they generally do not look at for sale by owners.
No, on occasion they will, and yet they usually don't have time to waste, right? And then the fourth type of buyer is really that buyer that is a looky-loo. That's really, that's just considering, do I, don't I, maybe I do, maybe I don't, not necessarily highly motivated. And the majority of those folks are not working with a realtor because a realtor is going to want to ensure, most of us are anyway, if it's our full-time profession and we're business people in the profession, that the person we're working with is somebody that in fact is going to purchase a home when the right home is available to them. And so a lot of folks that are casually looking are really not likely to ever buy. They may, and maybe 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now.
Yeah. So if you're considering selling by yourself,
right,
we'd love to help you out. You know, have us in. We'll explain what you need to do. We'll explain what we do for you. We'll explain exactly, you know, pretty close what we think your home is worth. And if you think you want to try it on your own, we're okay with that. And we're happy to represent you if that doesn't work out, that in the future, we'll help you out.
Right. And so other than the four types of buyers that you just want to be aware of, so that you, when you're having a conversation with somebody, maybe you're hosting an open house, you can start to distinguish and identify what kind of buyer you're working with, right? Because ultimately, your goal is to sell your home, and it's to sell your home.
Yeah. And one of the challenges that a for sale by owner has is all the buyers will say your house is lovely.
Yeah, every single one.
And
I would too.
Yeah, it's just because if you go into someone's home, kind of as a guest, the homeowner's there, you're not going to tell them what the negatives are about the house. You just tell them you got a nice house. And then the homeowner thinks that they've got a prospective buyer, but the buyer's going back in the car and going, no, that didn't work for us. And they leave because they didn't want to hurt your feelings. Right?
Right. No, it's true.
So that's one of the challenges.
Right, because even what we will say to our sellers, it is better for you not to be home for a showing when we are representing a seller, because you're not going to get the truth of the feedback anyway when you're in the house. So, yeah, it's better not to be there.
Yeah. So let's talk about the, what really are the challenges with selling by yourself? Not that some people do it.
And they do okay.
Yeah. So there is a lot of worry.
Right.
And if you have the Dekker team working for you, we do the worrying for you. You don't have to worry. You can relax.
We do have a proven track record.
We have the concern of getting your home sold and protecting you. And that's it's not really a worry in the sense of the negative worry. It's that we feel responsible and want to look after you.
Right.
Yeah. So that's important to know. Now, the other thing is, when you're showing a property, there is a concern for safety. Even for realtors, we're trained and we have things to look out for, because when we're showing a property, there's generally no one else there, it's just us. And so we've been trained to look for what to watch out for. For sale by owners, who typically, maybe the wife's at home, the husband's working, or vice versa, and normally they wouldn't let someone in their house randomly, but because they put a for sale by owner sign on the lawn, then they think, oh, someone knocks on the door, it's okay to open my house to them and let them in.
Right.
That's not very safe.
No, I know recently Candace, our daughter, who I mentioned has been a realtor with us for quite a few years, and in fact you may be one of her clients and you know her well, she recently refused to go show a property to somebody because there was just too many things said on the telephone with this person that she'd never met before, and he was a male, that she just said, come on into the office, you can meet us, we'll make sure we're showing you the right kind of properties. And that conversation wasn't something he was comfortable with, and she just decided she wasn't going to go into a vacant property by herself in the middle of nowhere with this person. And there are things that certain things that were said that just made her a little leery. And, it's the right thing to do to be careful about that stuff.
Yeah, and what she does...
Because there is stories out there of terrible things that have happened to people.
Yes, even realtors. And so by bringing someone into the office, there's a couple things that happen. One, we can get their ID.
Which
so
with FinTrack we need to anyway. That's the...
Two, we can pre-qualify them properly so that they're not going into the wrong house for the wrong reasons or whatever. Just we now know we're bringing them into the right houses. And it's just safer for everybody. Safer for the seller, safer for the
realtor. And so that is one thing Ken just mentioned, a piece that's a little more difficult when you're selling your own home, unless you've been trained in, and maybe you have, how to ask the questions about pre-qualification, so that you know the people you're taking the time to show through your home, in fact, can afford to buy your home if they want to. Whereas something we do as a professional realtor is we ensure that buyers are in fact pre-qualified before we start showing them homes. Because there's no point in falling in love with a home that you can't have. And why displace the seller from their home for an afternoon or an evening or a morning for that matter, when in fact the person can't buy. Or maybe can't buy now.
Yeah, and just a little tidbit, if you're thinking of selling by yourself, my suggestion is you don't follow the people around and tell them this is the kitchen, this is the bathroom, this is the bedroom. Because you know what? They probably know what it is because the type of furniture that's in it, and there's a fridge and stove in the kitchen. So generally you don't have to tell them it's a kitchen.
You don't do that?
No, but it's amazing how many people do. And when sometimes people are selling their house for sale by owner, and it happens to be the right house for my buyer, I might show it to them. And it's amazing how many people take us around the house and tell us those things. And it doesn't really add any value. It just makes the buyer uncomfortable.
Right. So you're better, even if you are selling your home, a great tip that Ken's just alluding to is let the people have a wander through your home and just be available if there are additional questions. Have a printed property brochure, detail something with pictures, something with the facts and figures so that they can take that away with them. Somewhere on that sheet where there maybe is room for note writing so that they can add the additional things that they find valuable, and then really let them experience your home without being attached to them.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
That is probably one of the biggest single things you can do to increase the probability that a buyer is going to picture themselves in your home. Because while they're feeling uncomfortable, think of yourself if you've ever been in that situation where a seller has been home and you've been out looking and somebody is following you around, you don't feel as able to connect with the home.
Yeah, you don't feel comfortable, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so if you're just joining us on the Inside Track on Real Estate with the Dekker Team, I'm Ken Dekker, and I'm here with my wife, Yetta, and we've both been selling real estate for a long time. And today we're talking about, if you're considering selling your property by yourself, we're talking about the advantages and maybe some of the things to consider if you're thinking of doing that. Now, one of the things to consider is selling by yourself isn't all that cheap. By the time you buy your advertising, your websites, your signs, and all that sort of thing, it's very easy to spend $1,000 or more. Yeah. And
plus a lot of time.
Plus a lot of time. A lot of time. Taking time off work to allow showings, because if you don't take time off work to allow showings, you're going to miss some showings.
And it could be the showing that would have sold your home for the right price.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So that's a big deal.
And then all that time and effort and costs, if you're unsuccessful, which a majority are,
unfortunately,
then that money's gone.
Right.
Okay.
So you're paying your upfront cost with no ability to recoup that. Well, and no ability to recoup that if you're not successful.
You're actually acting like a real estate agent. Because
yes, you are.
Because we do all that. We spend all the upfront marketing money, our time, our expertise, our staff who do the videography, the pictures, the descriptions, the property
brochures, the Facebook, the Twitter, the websites.
The YouTubes, and all the marketing into different websites. And if we aren't successful, we eat all the upfront cost and the homeowner pays nothing.
Right.
So that's
so it's actually safer. Yes, we recognize that the cost at the end when we create a result is higher than potentially it would have been if you had been successful.
The cost is, but not necessarily the bottom line.
No, because it's also about what ends up in your pocket.
That's more important than what they pay me, I think.
Well,
in my opinion, what they keep is way more important to me
well,
than
and probably
what I
in your
keep.
opinion too, because if you are selling your home for less because you're not a professional negotiator and the other party, which often will be a realtor on the other end anyway, the vast majority of homes that are sold privately, in fact, do have a realtor that's working with the buyer.
So they're paying a commission anyways to the buyers.
Just half. They're not paying a marketing fee. They're only paying for a buyer brokerage fee.
But they really are, because they're paying it up front.
Right. So they already spent it. Right. So you just want to explore your options. It sounds probably better than it often is. And we have a lot of clients that we would be more than willing, and who are more than willing, to have a conversation with you that in fact did go down that road and didn't have success, and then called us and had great success, and we're very happy with the results. In cases, we've even increased the price of what we were asking or what they were asking, and then sold it.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
and
that has happened.
The other thing that happens, though, is for sale by owners, quite often, you know how you feel things are worth more when you own them? Similar to, you get that sticker shock when you go to trade in your car and you think your car is worth $5,000 and they say, yeah, we'll give you $2,000 for your car. And you go, oh. And it's similar to our houses. We think they're worth more than they are because we live in them. We're personally attached to the little upgrades we did, or
even the big upgrades we did.
And we think, wow, we spent $10,000 on that, so I ought to get $20,000 back, and it's just not true.
No, most of the time, the improvements we make to our homes are improvements for us, not improvements for someone else. And when we sold couple of homes back, we had extensively over-improved the property because we had planned to live there for many, many years, which we did live there over 15 years. And because we had made so many improvements, it was substantially more elaborate than the other homes in our neighborhood and in a similar price point, except we sold our home for marginally more than the other homes that had virtually none of the upgrades because it was still the same style, the same size, the same core foundation, and so that is often the case. You may get some premium, generally not anywhere near 100% of what your original investment was because they were my improvements. They weren't necessarily improvements that others wanted to pay for. They wanted them, so the home sold quickly, except not necessarily improvements that they were looking to pay for, right?
Okay. So another thing that for sale by owners are limited a little bit is there's certain marketing vehicles that only real estate agents have access to.
Because we're paying for them.
Yeah, but also they're those magazines or whatever, they do not allow for sale by owners. They only advertise real estate agents' properties, and because of that, they're a place where buyers turn because it's a resource. And basically when you have the bulk of information, you have all the listings in one place, that's where buyers want to turn. They don't want to go to small individual websites, or they can't find them, is the truth, for sale by owner, because you got to be in there with the bulk. That's what attracts the people.
Right.
The buyers.
No, that's true.
Yeah, it's the bait.
Right. And the other thing to watch for is the whole appraisal and mortgage end of things is something that is a little more challenging if you're selling your home on your own. And
for the buyer.
For the buyer. Yeah. Well, and for the seller, because it ends up impacting the seller. Yes,
it does. But it's the buyer that, if the property's for sale by owner, the banks are, some lenders won't even lend to a buyer who's buying a for sale by owner, because not you, but there is more fraudulent things happening in the for sale by owner
outside
segment,
of the professional,
out of the professional section. Because if a real estate agent who's earning their livelihood, like we are for the last 25 years, if we do something that's outside of the realm and considered fraud or whatever, that could cost
or not within our code of ethics,
forever,
right?
As opposed to Yeah, so stuff goes on sometimes.
Right, so that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is the financial institution isn't as assured that the value is the value. So an appraisal is going to be relied on much more frequently than it is if you're selling your home through a real estate agent, right? So that whole, there's just less questions, because I think Ken talked a little bit earlier in the show about values and concern that maybe as a person selling on your own, you might overprice your property. Or if you've lived in it a really, really long time, you might underprice your property. It could go both ways.
And if you do that, let's go there for a second. Let's say you underprice your property and you're getting multiple offers on it.
Right.
Okay. At the same time. And a seller may not know how to handle that in a professional way.
And may sell their home twice.
They may sell their home twice.
Nasty.
That could happen. Then they're going to get sued. But they also might not keep things confidential, and the buyers are worried because they know if they're dealing with a real estate professional, we have a code of ethics on how we handle multiple offers and who has to be notified when and how
what information we can give and what information we can't give.
Well, the sellers, for sale by owners, are not working under that code of ethics and that training, and so buyers are a little leery because they think you might be sharing their offer with the other buyer.
And you might be.
And you might be. Whereas
you can.
As a real estate agent, we're not going to, and we're not allowed to.
No. And so back to the value thing a little bit too, because almost always, the highest value that's ever going to go on a home is that by the homeowner. Then you've got the value that the bank perceives. Then you have the value that the buyer perceives. You have the value that the insurance company perceives. Everybody puts a slightly different value on the home because they're coming at it from a different vantage point. Right?
And for a different reason.
And for different vantage point. Isn't that a different reason?
Sure.
Okay. And therefore have a different perspective. So it just, even if you're going to sell on your own, call a realtor. Call us. We'll gladly give you market data on the telephone. We'll give you the market information for your neighborhood. Just tell us what you're doing, and we're not going to be threatening. We're not going to be aggressive. We're just going to give you what we need, because ultimately we know that as a whole, when we take care of people, at the end it works out just great for us too. And so we've enjoyed that philosophy for years. And so don't ever feel that if you do decide you want to try it on your own and you're okay with spending the upfront money and you understand the disadvantages or the concerns, maybe they're not disadvantages to you, you understand the concerns, then if you want us to help you, we will do that, and then you go ahead and you're going to have full reign, but you'll be informed. You won't be ill-informed.
And there is a risk for sale by owner in not disclosing things that they should have disclosed. Yeah. And not that you're under any code of ethics or anything.
You're not.
It's kind of buyers beware if a buyer's buying it for sale by owner. And yet, if they find something after the fact, they can go after you in a court.
And we've seen it.
For those deficiencies. Yeah. And a real estate agent also could be in that boat as well. The difference is we're insured.
Right. And the difference is we know what our concerns are. We know what to avoid, what to look for, what things that if you don't disclose may cause you grief down the road. Whereas a typical person that's, even if you've sold 3 or 4 homes on your own, and maybe you've done okay, maybe you haven't run into any major problems, it is still not your area of expertise. And so with it not being an area of expertise, there is way more risk that you put yourself under by going down a road that you really don't have vast expertise on. It's not your area of mastery. It's not your area of extensive knowledge. And so we just be aware of that, because we hate the phone calls when people have gone down that road and are now in trouble. Yeah,
and even there are agents who, haven't maybe sold very many houses. They have a broker of record. They have, people like myself, yourself, that they can vest an offer against and say, hey, have I written this properly? Am I missing anything? Because even them, after coming through basically 4 or 5 months of schooling on getting the real estate license, they still may need to sit with us and make sure that their offer is proper and they're representing people properly. And it's important. So for someone, like you said, that's even sold 3 or 4 houses, they're probably quite a span apart.
Right.
They don't have the formal training. And so an agent even an agent that only sells 1 or 2 houses can get really rusty compared to agents that are selling
hundreds
a house
a year.
every week or two.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, which is excellent. So we don't want to miss telling you about a great property that is for sale. It is in Rideau Forest, which is a really prestigious, awesome area located just outside Manotick, and it is on over 3 acres actually. Beautiful home that is $900,000, which for Rideau Forest is actually really below average in that price range.
3 acres? For people that live in the city, they might
3
not
acres.
understand what 3 acres
Well,
is.
it depends on the shape of the lot. However, let's say it's 200 feet across by 600 feet deep.
Wow.
As an average ideal shape probably, or common shape with that kind of acreage. And the average city lot might be 40 or 45 feet by about 100, 110 feet deep. Some of them are even smaller. However, a home of this size would probably be on a 50-foot lot, or maybe 60 in Stittsville, 60, 65 by about 100, 110 feet deep.
So in the city, they get about 24 houses on this lot.
I guess. If you've done the math, I'm going to trust you on it.
Yeah, something like that.
So lots of elbow space on the outside of the property, lots of elbow room on the inside. Of course, triple car garage to go along with the 3 acres, 3-car garage, which is kind of neat. 3 very spacious bedrooms upstairs with additional bedroom space in the lower level, which has a lot of finished space there. The home has been extensively renovated in 2012. So it feels like a current built home, although it's already had all the bugs worked out of it. So it's a little more, so it's an established neighborhood.
It doesn't have bugs, does it?
Well, it doesn't have bugs, but the potential challenges have been worked out of it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You really take my language.
I don't like insects much,
Yeah, I know. I've lived with you for a long
and
time.
the beauty with it being not a brand new house is the landscaping is mature.
I was
There's
just
nice
going
trees.
there when you were talking about
so
bugs.
We're great minds think alike.
Fools seldom differ.
No, I didn't say it. You did.
Okay, so anyway, great landscaping, great curb appeal, lots of outdoor space and lots of indoor space too. So if you're thinking of something in that neighborhood or any neighborhood,
How much is that house?
$900,000.
Wow, that's a good price for
It
that.
is. It really is. And so if you're interested in that home or any home, please give us a call or feel welcome to give us a call at 613-860-4663 or email us at info@dekkerteam.com. And don't forget about our app. If you haven't already gotten our app, if you're not one of our clients that's already plugged in, or somebody that wants to be one of our clients and you want an app, or even if you just want good real estate information and you want our app, you'll want to email us at info@dekkerteam.com with subject title app, please, or app. We'll still send it to you, but if you don't say please, that would be awesome. Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Show. All about,
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
See you next week.
What you wanna